On this episode of the Comic Book Kaiju, we have a very special guest today, toy collector extraordinaire Jay from Geek Dad Life. I am very happy to have Jay on. I think Jay has the best geek collecting channel on all of YouTube. Geek Dad
come
Life.
on now.
Jay, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing well. Thank you for having me. And you flatter me too much. I don't deserve it.
I think you deserve all the praise. We're going to have all the links in the show notes. You can check out the best geek collecting channel on YouTube in our show notes. But Jay and I, did we do the Hold On Maneuver? We did a Star Wars podcast
Yeah,
together.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So we have a little bit of podcasting experience, but I wanted to get a little bit deeper. I wanted to know, who is Jay? What is Jay? Why is Jay? I wanted to know a little bit more about Jay in general. And since we're a comic book podcast, comic book discussion podcast, I wanted to first get your comic book origin story. What kind of got you into, and not necessarily reading comic books, but just the IPs and the properties of either superheroes or comic book characters? What kind of got you started? I'm always interested.
Yeah. Superman. Superman was my entryway. I think I was 3 years old, and my dad loved Superman. But I think it was we watched the movie, or I saw the movie, or something along those lines. But then I also got, I don't know if it was a collected paperback of like the first issues post, was it Crisis of Infinite Earths? Like kind of that 80s Superman reboot. So I got that, and then I also got a Superman cape, and so I was just obsessed with Superman. So that
Nice.
comic book, I would wear that cape everywhere. Like there's that period of time where just like that was just a normal part of what I would wear around, and then and then I got my first Superman action figure, which he's over there. I still have him.
Nice.
So yeah, I think Superman was the first, and then there was Batmania in '89. So then it was Batman and Robin. Robin was my guy. Still is my guy.
Oh wow, nice.
And so obsessed with Batman in '89, '90, and then obsessed with X-Men. I found a brown suit Wolverine action figure at a flea market, and I was like, "Who's this guy?" And then my dad was like, "That's X-Men." So then it was just like, I want to learn about these people, and then so I became obsessed with X-Men. So
Nice.
It's kind of like and those are still like my big three: Superman, Batman, and X-Men.
Nice. You have a very similar origin story, actually, to myself. My dad was into superheroes growing up, and he introduced me to Superman, Batman, Flash, and so those were my characters. Later, I did get into X-Men with the '90s animated and things like that. But I think also that notion of passing it down from father to son, and now you and I are both dads, and I'm thinking about my son and how I want him to have a positive childhood and have something that he can look back on. Like I think you and I both, we look back on our childhoods and say, man, these action figures, these IPs, these properties and characters mean so much to us. That's kind of what I want to pass on to him. So I'm trying to raise him right to be a little Jedi and be a little superhero. So definitely that's something that I think we both share. And I think we were kind of similar in age as well, because I had that Bat 89 mania. I was obsessed with Christopher Reeve Superman for a long time. Also had a cape for Halloween and walked around or flew around my house.
Right? Yeah, exactly. With that cape, you flew. It wasn't running. It was you were flying.
Yeah. So 100% I relate to that. So that's cool. I really, I'm always interested to get people's, how did you get into this stuff, and that kind of transitioned to, I think, with Geek Dad Life, how did that start? Because you actually talked to me a little bit off mic about how you started as a podcast, right? And then you transitioned over to YouTube and live streams.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of like, even well before Geek Dad Life, like back in how we kind of have mutual friends and how we end up meeting. was a Lost podcast years ago, about the TV show Lost.
Yes.
2005. And so had podcasted about various TV shows for, I don't know, over a decade.
Nice.
But then eventually that just got, you do anything long enough, you kind of, I don't know, you lose the spark or the motivation or something like that. You just want to do something different.
Right.
And so about 3 years ago, there was just this moment of, I've been doing as a side hustle creative endeavor for so long. But I had always wanted to do something about like the things that I'm just passionate about, not necessarily today we're going to talk about episode 3 of so-and-so show. Right. And just kind of wanted to break that mold and do something completely different, and also forego podcasting as the medium and focus on video as the medium. And so, that was kind of the origin story of Geek Dad Life, which even when I started, I didn't know it was going to be a toy-centric or toy collecting-centric channel. But because at the time I was like, well, there's plenty of people that do toy videos. Like I don't know if I'll have anything to add. So it's just gonna be like, whatever it is. It could be a toy. It could be an arcade game, or it could be I went to Disneyland or something. It's just like, it's just about the Geek Dad life, being a Geek Dad.
Nice.
But the thing is, like a month or so into doing the channel, the pandemic hit. So life kind of stopped. Like there wasn't anything to do.
Right.
So the thing that kind of filled that space was toy collecting, because I could still, mask up and go to Target and find a toy or action figure, or just talk about toys and action figures. And but then the thing is like the audience really responded to that as well, and the channel really grew. And so there is this thing, in doing content creation or whatever, it's just like follow, if your audience is digging something, follow that. And
right.
Out of everything that I am as a person, aside from being a father, and music as well, I'm a musician, but toy collecting has been the thing I have enjoyed as a pastime the longest.
Nice.
So it's easy to do a channel dedicated to that, because it's not work. I just love talking about this stuff. So
yeah.
And here we are 3 years later, and it's been going well.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I've, man, we have so many similarities. I started audio podcasting like 2005, and it was,
Same, yeah.
I want to talk about my passions. So I was talking about video games, comic books, TV, movies. I had a Lost podcast at one point, and so that was all those things. And at one point, I was doing 12 podcasts at one point, and I thought about it. I was like, how did I have so much time back then? Being a dad now, like I barely have time to do 2 podcasts. But it came to a point where I was like, I'm not, the audio wasn't, it was just very hard to get people to know about you, just to know I existed. And I just started video podcasting like within the last year. And I've found just in the last year, I've had more engagement, more just audience, like, oh, these people know I exist, rather than like the 10 years of audio. So I'm trying to make that transition now to where I think where you've gone, and YouTube seems to be like the best platform to focus on. So actually also wanted to pick your brain. Do you have any like YouTube tips? What's kind of something that you wish somebody had told you when you started Geek Dad Life?
I think I learned it pretty quick, thankfully. But there, and again, so you podcasting, as long as I have, the ways that podcasts became successful back in our day, but damn, it's nearly 20 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Is completely different. Like it was a very organic thing where you had word of mouth, and if you had the right topic, it would show up in search results, and so people would see, they would search Lost Podcasts, and there would be so and so many, and then look at artwork and be like, oh, I'm going to click on that. That looks interesting, and then now I'm a fan of that, or I'm subscribed to it. I'm going to listen to it in perpetuity or whatever. Whereas YouTube and a lot of things nowadays is in that Web 2.0, where it's the user doesn't have much control over what they see. YouTube does, right? So like YouTube tries to put the thing in front of you that you're gonna like,
right?
And so it was a very quick learn. It's just like, oh, like to reach people, I need to play by YouTube's rules. And so, you know, the advice that I give is like really dig into the analytics. There's a lot of YouTubers that just talk about YouTube and how to, you can never master the algorithm or whatever, but at least just how do you create engaging content so that YouTube wants to share you. And so very quickly, we're podcasting, at least to that point for me, was very leisurely. It was very just conversational. We're going to take our time. We're going to, maybe it takes 30 minutes to really get going. If you don't capture somebody in the first, 2 seconds, they could drop, and then YouTube's like, nobody likes this.
Yeah.
Don't show it to anybody.
Right.
So the shift of being a creator in this medium is how do you capture people's attention and keep their attention? And that I've had to kind of shift how I've presented the stuff that I've created. But at the end of the day, YouTube will show you in front of people, and it's your job to create engaging content. Have a topic that they want to click on, have a thumbnail they want to click on, but when they do, you keep their attention. And if you do that, it can grow. Nice.
I had another question for you on the geek topics. Do you have a favorite geek property? Because you have great videos on Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, X-Men. Yeah. Is there one property that kind of stands out to you as, this is my bread and butter?
Yeah. Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is my number one. Always been my number one. Again, since I was 3. Do I have it here? Yeah, okay. So I found a nicer copy, but this is nice. An original release. But on my 3rd birthday, I got this copy. This is the original one that started my fandom of all things Ghostbusters. So well loved, the bottom ripped out, but the tape will still play. I have an old TV to play old video games on and stuff, and play VHS tapes. But it still works. But anyway, so this was the start for me, and I don't know why. Just to capture, it's one of those things. Just captures your imagination at a young age, and they had the real Ghostbusters cartoon show. The toy. Yeah. So that was my number one from then, and has always been. But at the same time, it's not. Some people have passions or collections that's just focused on one property. Clearly, that I don't have that. And so Ghostbusters is my favorite, my absolute favorite. But I love I love Turtles. I love Star Wars. I love He-Man. I love Transformers. Or DC properties. I got my whole superpowers collection right here. So to me, it's I love it all. If it's from Star Wars, Kenner 78, I think is when those toys start coming out. To usually, you can't really see it here, but Power Rangers, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. If it's within that range, I love it. Nice. Generally.
Yeah. Man, just going through all of your different properties, looking in the background is just amazing to me. And I had, again, this is just the similarities between us are astounding to me. I had a toy shelf or a closet, and it was just every mixture of all the different franchises and IPs. And I would spend hours just imagining a story, creating a story of, Wolverine is going to interact with Optimus Prime like this. And and that's kind of, I think, the joy for me of childhood was creating those stories and living out your fantasies and dreams. And superheroes always gave me that power fantasy, what if I had superpowers? What if I could do, what if I could fly? Things like that. Absolutely. So I think that looking at your background, it just gives me that nostalgia for my own childhood of, man, I remember I'd open up the closet and here's all the the
Yeah.
toys and stuff. And actually, podcasting got me back into collecting a little bit. When I was searching for different podcasts to listen to,
Yeah.
and I would come across ones where they were talking about toys and collecting, and I was like, oh, people are still doing this, because I didn't have any friends in my life that
Yeah.
were doing it. So the internet, has connected everybody and
More
made
like me out there.
yeah. So that was it was a joy finding your channel, and I'm really, like I said, I think it is the best on the internet. So I 100% urge everyone out there who is watching this or listening to this, check out Jay's channel, Geek Dad Life. You got anything coming up on the channel that you want to talk about?
I post. Well, I either do live streams, which is kind of like a video podcast, but it is live, and then kind of edited short form, or not. It's not even short form. It's usually about 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minute videos that it's a review of something or something like that, or a history of, or something like that. So upcoming on the channel. I don't know when this posts, but I'm editing, or I'm doing all the B-roll footage right now. I think it's Jazzwares. Do you remember in the 90s those like Micro Machine Star Wars ships, but they were bigger, so you could put like little minifigures in them and stuff?
Yes.
So it was called Star Wars Action Fleet. One of my favorite toy lines, I think, because it was perfect. You had like ships that was easy to play with, and you still had little people you could put inside and stuff.
Yeah.
So that went defunct in the early 2000s, I think. But Jazzwares has kind of rebooted or rebirthed the line with small ships with little minifigures that go inside them. But what they have improved from the original is, all the ships in that Micro Machine line, the Action Fleet one, they were all similarly sized because they were all the same price point. So the Millennium Falcon would be about the same size as an X-Wing, which that's not to scale, right? We're both geeks, so it's like, it's not scale. So fine when you're a kid, but what I love what Jazzwares is doing is it's micro scale, but the Millennium Falcon is big compared to an X-Wing. Like they're trying to make all the ships scaled, and it's not perfectly scaled, but more accurately scaled to all the other ships. So I think it's the whole premise of the video is a Star Wars reboot that's better than the original, and this one is, because they've actually taken the charm of what made the original line great, but actually improved on it. So that's my hope is to have that posted on Saturday. But it's those videos take, even though it's like 8 minutes, those videos can take days and days because it's the editing is takes time. Versus stuff like this, where it's like turn on the camera, press record, talk for an hour, ta-da!
Well, actually, that's interesting. I wanted to ask you about that as well. Transitioning from doing podcasts to doing the live streams and then the edited content. Do you see pros and cons for live streaming versus the edited content? Do you get more joy out of doing live streams? Like, does it feel more real, like feel more interactive, like people are watching you right now, it's live?
Yeah, there's something, and even when I was podcasting, I tried to have it be hit record, what's recorded, and then gets put out. Mainly for time reasons, right? Because and again, I think we both probably have friends, because we've been in podcasting so long, that they record for 3 hours and then spend weeks editing it down to a crisp 59 minutes, And I was just like, why? Why are you spending so much time, and taking out every pause or taking out every and ah or whatever? And I was like, I'm an machine, but what gets me better is not editing and knowing that I have to get better. I have to, there's nothing saving me in this conversation. So I just have to be better at having a conversation. And so I've always kind of had that mindset, but live is taking that to the next level, right? There's no do-overs. There's no, crap, I flubbed that, or whatever. Like, it is what you're doing is being watched and viewed live. But I feel like there's something about that makes it more energetic, that makes it more, and when you have guests on or whatever, it's just, it has a vibe and an energy that takes that pretty much hit record, what we talk about gets published, to the next level. Because if you have a lull or something, there's people in the chat, you can plus them into the conversation, or say, again, if you podcast long enough, you're saying like, oh, what was that person's name? I think it's this. It's not that person. You post the episode, and then you get 100 emails about how you were wrong.
Right.
But live, someone in the chat is like, no, it's this person. Like, oh, okay, it's that person, and then you move on. You know, like so. To me, there's just the it's kind of that Saturday Night Live thing where they're writing and like pretty much up to the minute they go live, and then it's just live, and then that's it, right? There's something about that creative process of we're live. We do a live stream Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern time, and whether we've got the most prepared show or maybe not the most prepared show, but we're going to hit that live button and we're going to go. And something about that. Maybe it's just like my ADHD brain where it's just I need the pressure to like get it done that I really enjoy about it.
Dang. Well, that is very enticing to me. Like I said, I've been dabbling with the video podcast for the last year, but I haven't gone live yet. So very encouraging to hear your story and see what success you've had on Geek Dad Life. So I wanted to say thank you, Jay, for coming on the Comic Book Kaiju podcast. This was a fantastic episode. And like I said, everyone out there who is watching this and who is a fan of Comic Book Kaiju, or you like any of our content, you will definitely like Jay's content. So please check him out over at Geek Dad Life. I like it when he does that. I like when Jay does that. Thank you very much, Jay. I want to say 100% Jay loves comics, and you should too.